Craig seems to be a new player out there. Ryan Kent, just overall takes on the path to bringing him and the decisions to do so.
Yeah, I mean, look, the MLS rules are nice and confusing, but with Paul's injury, there's a myriad of steps to go through to replace a player and the limitations that are involved in that. The search gets narrowed down pretty quickly when you get down to the actual budget and money. And so, what we wanted to do is add a player that has the potential to be a difference maker, or add quality to the group. We didn't want to add just to add, and so it took a little less time than I thought it was going to take, if I'm being honest, just with the budget we had. But fact of the matter was, once we started talking to Ryan, his level of interest in MLS right now and the timing in his career was perfect. He wants to come. He wants to kind of resurrect his joy in football, and I'll let him talk about that more than me, of course. But he's had a tough year, given some of the teams he played for and some of the decisions that were made around leadership and coaching and playing time. So it's fortuitous for us to be in a position to bring him in and for him to want to come at the time when he's 28 years old.
Definitely ambitious in terms of potential, but there are some maybe red flags, if you will. He hasn't played since July of last year. There's clearly some things that he's going to have to get fit and game ready. How did you go about analyzing those situations with the conscious of what he could ultimately provide you?
Yeah, well, look, I invite you to go watch him. Fitness isn't going to be an issue. He's a heck of a pro. I mean, he showed up. His testing was better than some of the guys that are 4 months fit. So he's been working out. In terms of, we all have different phrases and things we use. Red flags is one I don't typically say, just because sports is full of surprises, good and bad. So yeah, I mean, anytime we're able to bring a player here, there's going to be the why and the how and the what. For me, the quality of what he is and the age he's at, I just don't know if there were any limitations as to why he can't come here and get back to his top level of performance, which for us is, sky's the limit in terms of the way he can fit in this league.
In terms of how he can fit, give us a scouting report there. What skills of his did you like that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a dynamic attacking player. He likes to take players one-on-one, which is something we've been trying to add consistently. We have a couple players that do it well. We have a lot of guys that are possession-based thinking, which is something that's been a trend over the last 8-10 years of soccer and the way these guys have grown up. So to be able to attract a player that enjoys attacking defenders, that enjoys going at them, that enjoys cutting inside and shooting, that has no fear in going outside of a defender and crossing a ball or cutting a ball back, those are qualities that almost any team would want to add. Not every team, but for us specifically, it's a profile that we don't necessarily possess at a level of experience we absolutely don't possess within a budget that fits these weird MLS constraints, and a motivated player that wants to come be successful.
Well, you mentioned the budget a couple times now.
Yeah.
What flexibility do you have for the rest of the 2025 season?
We have some flexibility. I mean, obviously we have the U22 spot that we've talked about. That's the main point of flexibility we have at the moment. Clearly, there's always flexibility because in our league you can move players, right? So there's flexibility beyond flexibility in that sense. But in terms of the way we're structured, the way the MLS structures everything, replacing a season-ending injury is limited to the prorated amount that player would earn. So when you break that down, there is no money left over to purchase a player, things like that. In terms of where we are with the roster, we still have the use of a U22. The biggest thing for us is we don't want to add a U22 player that's not going to contribute, we are really focused on an attacking player, and good attacking players that score goals at that age are going to be really hard to attract, depending on which part of the world they're living, which part of the world they're coming from. Age is a factor, experience is a factor, travel is a factor, all these different cultural things come in, but we're not really looking to settle on a player that we think is going to be good in a year or two. We we don't think we need to settle, to be honest. We think we will eventually attract the right guy that can come in and contribute pretty quickly.
Just to make sure we understand the rule around replacing Paul.
Yeah.
Basically, you get a chunk of money, or you don't actually get a chunk of money. You get a limit on a chunk on a budget, and then you can put one player that fits within that budget. But it's not like if you don't spend money from that, it gets rolled over, and you can't use money from the other part of the budget to pay for this player.
Yeah, the way the season-ending injury mechanism works is you actually can replace the player up to the amount they were earning per month. So it's prorated. So from the date of injury, like however long it takes you to sign, you have X amount of money moving forward. But there's absolutely no rollover. That's a discretionary decision made by the club. So that's actual cash through that mechanism that the ownership has decided to contribute on top of the salary cap of where we're at. So yeah, you don't get to stack anything up, right. Or it's kind of a use it or lose it. The challenge, and the biggest challenge in that is it also doesn't carry over to next year and the year after, right? So there's a financial component of balancing the salary cap moving forward to balance out the financial commitment you can actually make.
Is that maybe why he maybe didn't want to have an option for that next year instead of wanting more of a guarantee?
I don't know if he didn't want.
No, I mean
look, this is a scenario by which this is a high quality player choosing to come here at a really intriguing time for us, at a really intriguing time for him. It's a perfect fit in that sense. In terms of the commitment to each other, it's let's figure this out together. Let's bring you here. Let's get the joy back in football. Let's get the quality back in your performance, and then we figure it out moving forward from there. But there's no limitation as to I have absolutely no doubt that a player that comes to Seattle is going to enjoy their football and want to stay. Then we get into, is the performance equal our interest in staying? And then on top of that, can we work it out moving forward with the cap?
And then with him, was he one of the ones at the beginning of the season you had talked about some European players that you were trying to attract or trying to sign? Was he one of those? Was he on your list, or how?
He's been on our list for a while. Yeah, his scenario, his situation's been so intriguing to us. Players. We've got players that don't play consistently for us, as we've seen. A player like Josh Atencio struggles to get in our lineup that goes to Colorado and starts every game, and they're doing quite well, and he's doing quite well. So we've been intrigued with his scenario, his situation. It just didn't work out until now.
Obviously, fitness is there,
yeah.
But how long should or will the P1 visa situation keep him away from the pitch?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a P1. I want to make sure everyone understands that we won't see Ryan this weekend because he's not available this weekend. We've got to go through all of the proper immigration processes, P1 visas, work visas, and everything like that to make sure. That's usually a 2 to 3 week solve, but we have no idea. I mean, sometimes it takes 10 days, sometimes it takes 21, sometimes it takes 25. So we've got people, we're on the phones a lot right now, trying to make sure we're getting the paperwork on each desk it needs to go to on his behalf. So hopefully sooner than later.
Is it an administration situation this time around? The government administration? Is that a...
I mean, work visas are work visas. That goes through their processes. I don't run them or change them. So.
When was he on your list? Fenerbahce or Rangers?
Both. I mean, when a player's starting and playing at the level he was playing for Rangers, the chances of attracting him at that moment at 24, 25, 26 years old is most likely not going to happen. It's just a player you kind of admire. You keep him on the list just in case. Obviously, when he goes to Fenerbahce, that's a Champions League level team, so you kind of go, well, good for him. But there's we have kind of a list of guys we track just in case. And so we've tracked him for a couple years now. It's just a matter of every piece of a puzzle has to fit together for a player to go to any club in the world. And this one just kind of finally happened to make sense for him and us.
What did you like about his maturity? Because obviously, like you talked about, without getting into what happened, obviously he had to take a step back. I mean, what did you like about the mental mindset of him?
I'm excited for you guys to meet him because what I like about him is he doesn't need attention, but he's going to get it because he's a good player. And I think he knows that. I think it comes across when you chat with him. He's not the guy that goes out of his way to attract. I mean, listen, the reason you guys are going to talk to him out here is because he didn't want to sit down and in front of a stage, in front of a podium, and have all the pomp and circumstance. He's a show up, show out, and go home guy. He wants to play football. That's why he's here.
Obviously, the first question that comes up sometimes when we talk about Ryan Kent is, how does a player with this profile kind of stay without a club as long as he has? What have you learned about why he's been in the free market as a free agent so long?
Yeah, look, of course I know all the details, but I'll let him share what he wants to share on that. I mean, the biggest thing for us is he's a sounder. You know, sometimes it doesn't matter how guys come here; it matters that they're here, and that's the biggest thing for me.
Right. You have a very good history of getting players kind of at a discount, and then based on their performance, rewarding them. For instance, Albert Rusnak. It seems like you have a situation where Jesus, Paul Arriola, and now Ryan, they're maybe coming at the level where they might not be able to come like 2 years ago. So how are you addressing the situation 2 years from now, where we hope that like they will overachieve, and then you have a situation where
Look,
kind of
you're
have to reward them?
yeah, you're speaking a general manager's dream. I mean, the very, very best problem to have is to have an entire roster of people performing at a level where you have to reward them more. And the way you solve that is tough decision making in the future. But look, if that's the problem we have, that's a wonderful, wonderful problem for me to try and solve. And of course, that's exactly what we're trying to set up. We're trying to create scenarios where there's enough competition that it's not obvious who should start. It's not obvious who gets to go through a 4-game slump. You know, we want a healthy roster that rotation it's not only available, it's expected if you're not performing. That's the only way we can drive this type of internal competition within that locker room. And the group's really good at maintaining that level of respect for one another. But make no mistake, like, they all want to take each other's minutes. And so that's a problem I would welcome.
With
Glove World Cup and prize that the Sounders got.
Yep.
Have you guys made any decisions on how you're going to kind of allocate that? And does that hit the salary cap in any way, or is that kind of a separate bucket from the
Yeah,
salary
again,
cap?
going back to our favorite conversation of salary cap, no. It doesn't impact the salary cap in any way. None of it can be taken as allocation. None of it distributes itself immediately back into the financial scenario of how we compensate our players, which obviously in my position, I would love for it to only be assigned to that. That would make it a lot more fun for me. But we haven't been able to go through everything yet. There's still a lot going on at the league level to figure out, like, you know, all the details of how that money gets distributed.
For a clarification, did you hope that when you signed Jesus that it would have been for the striker position?
Not really. I signed Jesus because he scores goals and he can play soccer. I mean, he's obviously playing well in the pockets. The second half in San Jose, if you look at his distribution from a withdrawn position, it was, you know, relatively elite. If you look at the balls he actually played, some of the creativity on those. Attracting a good attacking soccer player that can keep possession, likes possession, was the main thing. The goals are definitely never ignored. So a young player that scores goals is a good thing. I think he's still figuring out the rest of the group. I think the group's figuring him out too. But the chances are coming. The fluidity of that second half in San Jose was starting to, 25 shots. We have no excuses for not winning a game with 25 shots. Zero. You know, obviously coaching staff put the players in a position to win that game, and the players have to win that game.
And so it's kind of, my question is just like, you have a lot of attacking players, a lot of great players that do like to score, will play one-on-one, but do you feel that at some point you're going to have to get another Jordan Morris type of player that is actually designed, or I don't want to say designed, but you know, has that striker mentality? Do you,
Yeah,
from that central
I'd like
position?
6 of those. You know, the MLS rules are the MLS rules. We get 3 DPs, and then everything else has to fit within a pretty restricted financial budget in terms of the way you can pay and compensate. So you get 3 of those. If you have 2 of them, you either can play them both at one time or sit one on the bench. So you got to be really careful how you build the roster. But yeah, I mean, the truth is we would collect as many as we could, if we could. You know, if Suarez wanted to come play here for 1.5, we would have welcomed him.
To go off of what Jada's kind of harping at.
Yeah.
My question is, was there any misconception on the profile that was Jesus Ferreira? Because the need was a striker, because you only have two, right? It's Musovski and it's Jordan. So where was the misconception or the misunderstanding between what maybe Brian wanted in his style of play, in his soccer module, and what Ferreira provided that's kind of taken him so long to adapt to? Because he just doesn't seem to be fitting it necessarily.
Um, I guess you're relying on stats right now. Like I think it's a pretty short window of time to judge any player, frankly. But I think his goal scoring was attractive. The fact that it hasn't translated yet is concerning, but not. I don't know if I'd go as far as you went to insinuate anything abysmal or, like needing a grave, which I feel like that's about as far as you went with that. I think he's a good player. I think, like I said, I think we've got a lot of good players, but we still need to get a full healthy squad to really figure out how everyone fits. The chances, again, over 50 shots in our last 3 games, only 17 on frame, only 1 goal. I don't think it's one player. I'll be honest. I think if we're going to ask that question, we need to be asking about the entire attacking half of the field right now and how much responsibility each one of those players wants to take on their shoulders and wants to stand in front of cameras and own.
Yeah, I was just going off of what Brian kind of had insinuated after the San Jose game, where he clearly said that Musovski looked better at that position and Ferreira
in that
looked better
game,
dropping back.
Yeah, against San Jose, Jesus dropping back and Danny in that game, I think was obviously a good move. The second half was much more productive than the first.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has to do more with that matchup than maybe the overall. But again, I don't interview Brian after games. You guys do, so I'll let him answer that.